Hi, today on the bench we have a Mac Plus I picked up locally. It came with an external CMS hard drive, keyboard, mouse, and a power supply / system cooler. The front of this Plus claims that it has a Brainstorm accelerator in it. So let's go ahead and get it switched on and see what it does. I'll fire up the hard drive here with the system cooler. We'll let the hard drive spin up before we power on the Macintosh Plus itself. Get the mouse out of the convenient holder here. Set it down. Alright, hard drive spinning up. Sounds like it's ready. Let's fire up the Plus itself. So good news, we've got a boot chime. But it doesn't look like we're having much else going on here. Well, it does its thing. Sounds like we're rebooting. Battery's out, of course, so some of these older Macs will boot a couple of times with no battery, as they don't have any PRAM stored. Sometimes 3 times. So it sounds like it might be stuck in a boot loop. I should mention this is a Platinum Mac Plus. I'm not sure I've ever seen a Mac Plus recently that's this clean. Just basically one little smudge here on the front that I think is going to wipe right off. Yeah, there it goes. Otherwise, basically looks brand new. The accessories look brand new as well, but you know, I think in terms of aesthetics, it looks great. And there, it sounds like it's booting. I hear the hard drive spinning and accessing the disk. And the light's flashing up front. Not sure if you can see that, but we do have an activity light. So this machine does seem to be working. The hard drive does seem to be working. Just not getting any video. So let's go ahead and shut it off and take a look and see what we can see inside. So to get the system board out, and of course be careful of working around CRTs. They do contain potentially lethal voltages, even when they're unplugged. They retain that, so I'm going to be careful. Also, it is quite easy to snap the neck, which will render the CRT completely useless. So what you can do is you can take the neck board, well, not really a board in this case, but you can take the neck adapter off, and that might help you prevent it from, you know, snagging a cable and snapping the neck. So I've unplugged power to the analog board. I've unplugged the floppy drive now. And I do see what looks like an accelerator in there, so that's cool. So the Mac Plus board just slides right out the back like this. Alright. So here's what we have. We've got a Mac Plus with 4 RAM sims. This appears to be the Brainstorm accelerator. I'm not personally familiar with them, but it looks like that just sits on top of the 68,000 processor. And I don't know what speed improvement it offers, but it does have an MC68 1000P16. So I'm guessing that's a 16 megahertz upgrade with the 68,000 processor. I've got another Mac Plus, maybe I'll show on the channel someday, that has a 68030 processor upgrade in it. This one here, you can see it's got a resistor connected from here to this ferrite bead. So that must be providing, because I'm not sure what that would provide to the faster processor that sits on top of the stock processor. But overall, the board again looks very clean. A little bit of dust on it, but you know, again, basically brand new. The bottom looks pretty good too. So not too much to go over here. Let's check the resistors to see what RAM we have set. So the resistor here, this allows you to specify whether or not you're using 1 meg sims or the 256K sims, which were, I believe, stock in the Mac Plus. So this one is cut and bent to the side, so I'm assuming these are 1 meg sims. Very likely that they are. It looks like there's 2 different brands of sims on this thing. But I believe it's using the same type of RAM chips on each. Alright, so things look good here. Let's turn our attention to the analog board Now, it's very important when you're working on the analog board that you discharge the CRT first, because the flyback capacitor, which is connected to the anode cap here, does connect right to the analog board. So on the Mac Pluses and all of the compact Macs, they have this shield to prevent you from getting a potentially lethal shock. So we need to take this off in order to see what's underneath. We're going to check the various solder joints to see how they look, and we don't want to get a big shock from doing that. So we're going to take care to discharge that CRT. Not yet, because it does seem like the CRT was getting power, so I'm not suspecting that's the issue at this point. I'm suspecting there may be a cold solder joint here instead. So now to take this off, there are some black fasteners that hold it on. So if I grab my pliers here, should be able to just squeeze those off. All right, so we got one out. We'll get the second one out here. Maybe turn it a little bit so I can reach it. All right. And again, the idea is to not destroy things. So, I mean, you could remove these a little more forcibly, but I prefer to try to keep things intact as possible, especially for a Mac in conditions such as this one. So taking a look here at what we got. So the connectors that go to the monitor, we want to check that connector. So we're actually going to pull that off. And it could be something as simple as just some oxidation on the connector itself causing the picture to not display. Carefully take that out. And the board is mostly free, with the exception of these connectors. So now I got some more room to work. So we can try to take the CRT drive connector off. And I think we're good. I'll set this to the side briefly, make sure we're still on the towel here. Looks like it might be sliding out a little bit. All right. So with the analog board out, things will be a little easier to work on. We'll take these last two rivets out. And now we can take the paper backing off. Set that off to the side again, just for your safety and mine. That's why it's there. All right, so we've got the part number 6300102. It's the standard Macintosh Plus analog board. All right, so we can pull this connector off now, ideally. All right, and we got the digital board connector off. All right, so let's take a look at the back side of that. We want to make sure there's continuity on all of those pins to where they need to go. So we'll get out the multimeter here. I'm going to leave it stuck, that's all right. So we'll set it to continuity. And we'll go through these pins one at a time and see where they connect to. Alright, so we'll start on the left here. The very first pin, I can't see where it goes, but I can very clearly see crack solder joints on the first, second, the third, the fourth. Yeah, so all four of the pins, first four pins, they all have a crack solder joint. I'm not sure you're going to be able to see that on camera, but these here, yeah, the first four, totally cracked. So I'm going to fire up the soldering iron. And we'll take care of that little problem. So, soldering iron probably getting warm enough. We're going to hit these with some flux. And flux just helps the solder flow. Definitely going to be doing all of them just to make sure that they're good. If some have gone bad, it's likely that at some point they'll all go bad. So I'll just hit them with some flux. Not too much. This one looks like it's cracked as well. Take care of that. Otherwise, visual inspection, everything else that I'm looking at seems to be okay. I don't see any other problems. Alright, flux away. We'll grab some solder. So it doesn't really matter what kind of solder you use. Most likely this is leaded solder due to its age. Can't really be sure, but I've got some 6040 leaded solder here. It just melts a lot easier with lead. Is it a little more dangerous? Yeah, probably, but you know, everything's dangerous these days, so I'll get some fresh solder on these, make sure they're good. Not too much, just a little bit of a touch-up. Alright, looking good so far. Alright, one could use a little more, a little stubborn, but we got it. I'm going to give some extra to these ones that had the cracked solder joints just to make sure it goes all the way through to the other side. And that looks pretty good to me. So I'll move on to the other connector. That was the one that was cracked for sure, but we'll hit these other ones as well. Now these two pins here are very close but not connected, and the next two are actually connected. So they're what would look like a solder bridge together, but it's actually a trace, so it's intentional. So always good to take a note of those kind of things ahead of time to make sure that you're not trying to fix a solder bridge that is supposed to be there. Definitely done that in the past and can be quite painful. So just one more final visual inspection here. I'm going to refill these two as well. Looks like they are okay, but maybe a little sketchy. You know, I've got the board out, I've got the iron, might as well give them a little more solder just to be sure. Certainly won't hurt. Otherwise, checking out the rest of the board, I don't see any other problems. Let's put the soldering iron back. So now with those solder joints, they were testing out okay with the multimeter, but you know, it certainly could have been the problem. And again, it's something I could have done, taking those connectors off, but you know, I don't really see anything else on here that looks like it's bad. We do have everything looking pretty good from what I can see. I'm just doing another visual inspection here. There's a fuse, but I think that's coming from mains, and we're definitely getting power, so I'm pretty sure it's good, but why not? We got the multimeter. Yep, it's good. Yeah, otherwise I don't see anything too bad. There's two reefa caps in here. There's a little bit of cracking in one, so those are going to need to go and be replaced by new caps, because when reefa caps go, your entire house smells like burnt reefa cap, and there's a lot of smoke. So we want to get ahead of that one. But they look good enough for now. Famous last words, but we'll toss this thing back in and get it bolted down and see if we're seeing any improvement to the video output issue. I think she's ready, so let's give it some juice, see what we got. Yeah, even the screen is nice and bright. Certainly not as bright as it could be, since we can turn it all the way down, and there's quite a range where it's off, but overall, not too bad. I don't see any burn-in, so things are looking pretty good there. So as clean as this Mac is, I think it did get some use in its life. Certainly very well taken care of, though. And now we'll just let it boot up and see what we have. Alright, looks like we're booted up now. So hard drive has shown up. It's called Home Computer. We've got a file here called Jay's Account. I'm not big into going through people's personal information, even if it is 20, 30 years old, so let's just get rid of that right away. Alright, so on Home Computer, we've got what appears to be a 30 meg hard drive. We've got 18.2 megs used, 11.9 free. Some random stuff on here: Adobe Illustrator 3.2, Quicken 5, Super Paint 3.0, Word 4.0. Looks like maybe a game, Golf, and just some random other personal files that we'll clean up later. So checking about this Macintosh, it's showing as a Macintosh Plus running System Software 7.0. It does have the 4 megs as I speculated. And I presume that if we did a speed check, we could see if it's actually running at 16 megahertz. So let me grab a disk and I'll be right back. So let's do a performance rating. So we don't care too much about disk. And we obviously don't care too much about mass, so we'll test out just the CPU. One iteration of that. So let that run. Alright, looks like that's finished. And we're getting slightly over double the performance of a Macintosh Classic. So yeah, this 68,000 Brainstorm accelerator does seem to be working. Alright, so with that being said, I think I'm going to end the video here. I do need to get this guy apart again. I need to replace the reefer caps. I do need to service the floppy drive, and of course I need to clean the flux off those joints that I soldered. Flux can corrode traces, so we don't want to leave it on there. Alright, thanks for joining me this week, and I hope you have a great week.